Okay, I fully agree with you. All right, I'm going to start. So Tanya, if you want to start video recording, am I good to go? Okay, so I think she just gave me a thumbs up. I had the other one on. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this emergency meeting of the Auburn School Committee on August 28th, 2020. I'd like to bring this meeting to order and ask for introductions in ward order, please. Hopefully Pam can come on.
She's muted. So
We've got Pam Hart in Ward 2, Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
I'm Belknap, Ward 4.
I don't believe Dan Poisson, Ward.
He's on mute. Him, Adam,
Dan's muted.
We've got Dan Poisson's Ward 5.
There we go. Yeah,
Thank you, Dan.
on Ward 5. I couldn't unmute for some reason.
Okay. Don't mute yourself. Don't push any mute buttons. So all school committee members, please do not push mute. All right.
Faith Fontaine at large.
David Simpson at large.
Brian Carrier, Mayor's Rep.
Okay, thank you all. Because we're Zooming tonight, we are going to omit the Pledge of Allegiance. So first I want to thank you all for being able to meet on such short notice. We are all scattered about in different parts of the world right now, or different parts of the state right now. So we're here tonight at the request of the superintendent. And it's no secret that every step forward we take, the sands shift underneath us, and we are constantly asking to have to readjust some things. So with all of this happening going on, Dr. Brown has asked that we hold this emergency meeting. So we are here tonight to learn about some new, I would say, regulations, guidelines, or definitions, which were not in place when we formalized our reentry into school plan. So with that, Dr. Brown, I'm going to ask you for a quick clarification. In order for you, do you need to do a presentation and then the motion follows, or can I ask you for a Robert's Rules clarification, because it doesn't have presentation on the agenda?
So what I think would be helpful to the committee is if I gave a few opening remarks, and then the committee can enter a motion if it chooses with a second, and you can have some discussion about that. But I think in order to set the table for the public, it might be helpful to give the committee and others a little bit of information. That's okay with you?
Absolutely, thank you.
On the 27th, which was yesterday, the governor issued another executive order. And in addition to the executive order, there was released a standard operating procedures from the Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention Disease Surveillance. And what that SOP sought to answer was the long outstanding question of what schools will have to do for contact tracing if there is a COVID case or a suspected COVID case in one of our schools here in Auburn. And that includes staff as well as students. And as I read through both of those documents, it became clear to me that the model that we have adopted is not feasible to comply with the requirements of this SOP. And I contacted Chairperson Matthew and I asked her to convene this meeting because one person option are up in the 20s. I cannot comply with this in a responsible way. So I am here to answer questions and to make a recommendation to you that in order to comply with this, we need to drop back to a 2-day model. Now, I need to also express to you my frustration. I don't know why the CDC couldn't have released this guidance 2 weeks ago. There doesn't seem to be anything novel in it to me that had someone been thinking about this question, the inevitability of having to answer what happens when there is a case in a school should have been thought about 3 months ago. But that isn't how the information was provided to us. It was given to us yesterday. It was given to everybody. It's not just to Auburn. It's given to all schools. And I think it will be very challenging to comply with these guidelines or requirements, because the order says that you will require, as a publicly funded school, the requirements in these SOP procedures. I don't know how to do that in the current structure. Thanks, Karen.
Right, absolutely. So in order for school committee members to enter into comments, debates, ask further questions, we do need a motion on the table. So with that in mind, and I do want to make sure that that Robert's rules are followed. I'm not going to rescind the former motion. So being one of the prevailers, I'm going to be the one to make the motion that the reentry structure for the Auburn School Department for grades pre-K through 12 will be either as a remote student or as a student in a 2-day cohort, meaning Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. All right, now that we have entered into and we have a motion on the table, ladies and gentlemen from the school department, from the school committee, ask questions, please. This is the time to ask questions. This is the time to do that. Dr. Brown's right here with us. So I guess one of my first questions is, Dr. Brown, you said right now the way that we have kiddos separated out, we have cohorts as large as 20, and you're saying that the state has, and directly from the commissioner, that our cohort sizes are too large. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
So yes, so the commissioner is saying, and she again is relying on this SOP, that the way the cohort sizes are referenced, groups should be as small as possible. And the commissioner, in conversations with superintendents, has defined as small as possible as 10 to 12 kids. I checked with all of the principals.
We get rid of the 4-day model, so we're going to 2 and remote. And now we have 50% of the remote people come and say, hey, we're going to go to 2-day now. What does that do to our models? That would be my first question.
So to answer that, Brian, directly, first of all, I don't know how many of those remote kids would return to school. So we'd have to place them in classrooms and buildings where we had class sizes that would accommodate that. I don't have every class at 10 to 12 kids. So it may mean if I'm a remote student and I want to go to East Auburn, I'm not able to attend the East Auburn school because there's not capacity in my particular grade. So that's one option that might have to be looked at.
Yeah, the other major concern I have is, and it goes back to the 2-3 model and having kindergartners, pre-K, first graders sitting doing 3 days of independent learning. I can't stomach, honestly, putting a 2 to 3 model for our pre-K to 2. And I know those are probably some of the bigger class sizes, but are we able to accommodate them in back into the 4-day model, or are we talking that we basically have no options there?
So I spoke with the K2 principals, all of them classrooms. So some of the BI classrooms or the autism classroom at Walton is already below that threshold. So we think we can bring in those kids 4 days a week.
On the regular the cohorts, Monday, Tuesday, same teacher teaching Monday, Tuesday, that will be teaching Thursday, Friday.
Yes.
And they're worried about kids passing it to each other, or kids passing it to the teacher who will then pass it to the other cohort. I'm a little confused about that whole situation because same teacher, both cohorts. How is that playing out?
So the way the department or the SOP memo tracks that is that they want us to look at all other student and teachers who are considered part of that teacher's responsibilities. And therefore, if that classroom teacher was part of a exposure, then we might have to isolate both of those cohorts or quarantine both of those cohorts.
I should have forgotten to say. I forgot to say at the beginning that for those of you who are not school committee members or administrative members who would like to in public comment tonight, we are using the chat box. So for public comment, that is how you should be that is how you should be participating in public comment. So pop your comments in there at any point, I would say.
And Karen, are you monitoring that chat box, or did you need someone to do that?
Yeah, so someone asked about the impact of special ed students. So we've just answered that question, that special ed students would still be able to attend 4 days a week. You know, the comment of pre-K to 2, don't do the cohorts, but it's just, it's, I think that's been explained, that with principals, the class sizes are too large, so they need to be split into cohorts. So I'm going to say that this really does feel like our hands are tied. That just and please debate me if you would like to, but it really is beginning to feel like our hands are tied. That we have asked the Auburn School Department to basically stand on their head, stand on their nose, flip upside down to try to accommodate our families that we know. We've got the data. We know you want your kids in school. We know you want your kids in school 5 days a week. We want your kids in school. We know that there has, you know, obviously none of us have ignorant to the fact that our staff is not pleased with the model that was put through, and that I will say to you know, that I've said that kind of lightly there. They are not happy with this at all. But yet still we were absolutely willing to do anything we can to get our kids into school. So I would say this is not, and I think there's some public confusion out there. I know there's public confusion out there. I'm reading it all over social media, that we really have done our best as a school committee to get these kiddos into school. And that this has just sort of, for me, been a gigantic meteor that has been dropped on top of us at the 11th hour. And what that will do for families now who have to scramble for daycare and to try to figure out how to do remote learning with their youngest ones. I mean, I'm shell shocked. I'm not gonna lie. I'm completely shell shocked. So this is not what I wanted for our kids in our community. I wanted our kids in schools. So, you know, and please debate me, question me. I know Dave has questions.
Because it's not in the CDC guidelines, it's not on the DOE website. I'm just curious where we could find that and what science is behind that.
I can't answer what science is behind that. That is what is reported to superintendents by way of their regional meetings. And each of the regional presidents meets with the commissioner every Friday and then reports back to the rest of the members. And Michelle and I attend those Western Maine Superintendent Association meetings. And that's where the information is coming from. The cohorts need to be as small as possible. In the guidelines, they define, and this is the SOP, close contact as anything less, close contact being within 6 feet of an infected person with or without a mask. When we went to the 4-day model, it was with the understanding that we would have students 3 feet apart, which would be well under the 6 feet that the glossary of definitions references here.
Okay, so it's conversational. There's no document that indicates this.
No,
Is
not
that fair to say? Okay.
provided to me, other than here, which refers to, this is on page 7 of the SOPs, who describe a cohort, a consistent group of students and staff who interacts with each other, but not with members of other groups on a regular basis. Groups should be as small as possible, with maximum numbers outlined in the different reopening scenarios.
All right. Thank you very much. My other question is, and it's, do you know, or would you have or maybe Karen might have a guess, how many, this is a last minute change by the DOE or somebody, I don't know who it is, because like I said, I couldn't find the documentation. Does anybody have an idea what precipitated this at this point in time? When some schools were scheduled to go back on Monday. And I was also curious, how many districts does this change in language? How many does it affect outside of the Auburn School Department? If anyone has a guess or any anecdotal information.
So I've done a little bit of, well, I've done a lot actually, Dave. So I checked in with probably 5 districts that are going back with the return, open the door return or a 4-day return. And all of them have cohort sizes 10 to 14. I think the people that I spoke with in one district said their largest cohort was 14 kiddos, but they were littles. They were the littles, so they were less. And you are talking at least 7 that I got a hold of within the since this has come out.
All right.
I felt like I needed to do my due diligence as well.
Right. Well, it's a timing thing, and it seems, and maybe I speak too much, maybe I say too much, but it seems incredibly disrespectful to the educational system, and for the students of Auburn School Department to get this news into families. I think it's incredibly disrespectful on August 28th to get this news because it's put a lot of families in whirlwinds.
Absolutely.
My last question for Dr. Brown is, what are the potential consequences if we read between the lines and say we don't interpret the SOP, we're not going to do this? What would the potential consequences be to the Auburn School Department if we went ahead with a 4-day plan, if any?
Well, one of the potential consequences that I read is in the governor's order. And the governor's order spells out that, by the way, this is applicable to both public and private schools. That's on page 3. And that she does refer to in order to qualify for state subsidy or publicly funded schools, that you have to comply with the requirements as set forth in the common expectations for remote and hybrid learning.
So we would lose funding.
So she could pull, or the department could pull money from us for failure to comply.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from school committee members? Any other comments? I want to give you.
I just, I, like all of you, was very disappointed with this news for the sake that the kids can't go back, but also with the timing of it, because like you said, I know parents, teachers have been scrambling, administrators have been going above and beyond to do the new plan we had proposed. But I know I've heard from a lot of community members that have kids in the school that, they've rearranged work schedules, they've called daycares, and now again, they don't know who's going to take care of their children. I want all the kids, as many kids back in school, knowing what's going on. I feel like it's the last minute now. We're in an uproar again. So it's very unfortunate. It's been very hard for everybody.
I have some severe concerns in regards to, and I know we're not bringing it up at this meeting, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're talking about sports in schools, and if we're not contact tracing and we're not, it's unsafe to be at school for more than that. As far as I'm concerned, the sports are out until we are completely done with this. And I will be speaking to City Council on Monday night in regards to shutting down all the parks, because, as I said the last time that we met, I drove by the gully the other day, and there was probably 100 to 150 kids out there playing basketball and hoop and playing on the playground equipment and everything else. There is no way that you can contact trace in a situation like that. So to be safe, then we probably need to shut the parks down, and we need to not be talking about any extracurricular stuff so that we can contact trace properly. It's,
contradictory. Things are very contradictory. Everywhere you turn, everywhere you, and it depends on what, what system you're looking at. Brian, I would agree with you. Why 14 feet apart for sports, but 3 feet apart in school? It's very contradictory. And I will just say at this point, I don't know what more we can do. I honest to goodness, just don't know what more we can do other than completely apologize to families out there, because we don't want this for you either. We don't want this for anyone. We don't want this for our school. our schools, because now all the work that you have done to separate these kids out, all the conversations you've had with families and parents, all the placements you've done, you have taken people who have not had typical classrooms and you have moved them into classrooms. You have taken interventionists and Title I people and just really asked them to do things that have not typically been part of their role within the Auburn School Department. And to get this information at the 11th hour, it's
Hey, Karen, I don't mean to interrupt, but I need to say this.
Yeah.
The people whose lives were just turned upside down weren't teachers and staff. It was 44% of that survey that was taken of parents who were planning on a 4-day school work week.
I think it's more like 60-something%.
Whatever that percentage is, and now they have to scramble, and there's not enough daycare in Auburn. They're the folks, and I'm going to ask Brian Carrier if he could bring it to the city council to maybe open Ingersoll or something for daycare for these folks. And
Dr. Brown can speak to that a little bit. It was 60%, and we do have some information to share with families, which I would appreciate if the Auburn School Department absolutely blasted that and advertised for families out there. So, Dr. Brown, can you speak a little bit to that? Or Michelle, could you speak a little bit to that about what's been going on with some potential daycare offerings for families?
Dr. Brown, did you want to answer that?
Well, I can start. I know that the city has applied for a CRF fund, a COVID relief fund grant to help offset the cost of daycare for families. We got notice, I don't know, Adam's on the call somewhere, that the 25 million that the governor has set aside for relief for daycare to help provide for that has to be in by what, 4 days from now, Adam? You know, we got like 5 days to get that information filed, but we will. And that will help with the cost. It's being operationalized comparable to the 21st Century grants, which we already have in the community. We are going to do everything we can to find ways for parents who need care for their kids to access that. Michelle, I don't know what you'd like to add to that.
Just that there has been great collaboration amongst the providers, some providers in Auburn, and a new offerings through the rec department. Sabrina Best has done an outstanding job of not only coming up with childcare options, but very affordable childcare options that also include opportunities to support remote learning while children are at the childcare. So that was very exciting to hear about, because we know that's going to be huge, a huge part of this, right? The Y, Crochet, and I cannot remember the gentleman at the Boys and Girls Club's name, but they have been meeting with Sarah Levine, our child care director, to talk about providing similar offerings between those providers. And so there's an increase of options for families in the city.
And there's hundreds of kids who will require daycare, and based on the definitions given out by the CDC, DOE, and whoever else, they can only be in groups of 10 to 12 if there's an educational component to that. And I don't know, Adam, maybe you can answer this. If we've got CARES money left, if we can own this problem for the community. The DOE created it, or CD, whomever created this, it's disrespectful and it's inappropriate at this time. We need to do more for families than collaborate. And for the people out there, I'm very upset by this. And it's not about teachers and it's not about attendance. It's about what we're doing, what this decision on August 27th is doing to the majority of school-aged families in Auburn, Maine. Not some of them, the majority.
I think you speak for a lot of us. Yes, would this have occurred had the school committee a couple of weeks ago adopted the hybrid plan? But that is not what the school committee, the majority of the school committee wanted. The majority of the school committee wanted children in school. We want children in school. So with all of
the meeting that you were not in attendance, David, we asked that on our survey.
I think on the survey it indicated 27%. There was no response.
So I can tell you on the survey that we sent out in July, we had 98 people respond that they did not have access to internet. And the building principals are working with them to see if any of them are the same families that we gave hotspots out to in the